There was a very specific person who targeted me. This attending would berate me. I got fed up and I called the chief and I said to her, "You gonna fire me today." He got one more time to say something to me, and I promise I will throw this whole thing away. You tell him, don't call me, don't talk to me, don't even look at me, don't even think about me, or else he and I are definitely gonna get into it.
What's his name? Where he at?
Chavez. I'll say his name.
Oh, that's cold.
Damn, she calling him out.
Yep.
Look, we all got different needs, wants, and goals in life. As doctors, locum tenens definitely needs to be a part of that conversation. But you might wonder, how do I find out if locums is good for me? Here's my answer. Go to an unbiased, informative source like locumstory.com. You'll learn all the ins and outs of locums, details on travel and housing, how to find different jobs, tax information, and more. Get a comprehensive view of locums and decide if it's right for you at locumstory.com. Link is in the show notes. Have you heard of the Healthy Conversations podcast? If you're looking for a podcast that moves the health conversation forward, then I highly recommend Healthy Conversations, the acclaimed podcast from CVS Health. Hosted by Dr. Daniel Kraft, the Harvard and Stanford trained physician scientist, Healthy Conversations provides both inspiration and cutting-edge information about the forefront of medical practice. You can find it wherever you're listening to Docs Outside the Box, and don't forget to subscribe. And to make it easier, the link is in the show notes. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm your host, Dr. Neat. I am joined by
Dr. Renee, Jazz Hands.
Jazz Hands. That's something new, yet still corny.
I'm corny. I never said I was cool.
That's true, though. Okay. Yeah,
exactly.
Embrace your corniness. It's all good.
Exactly. It's good to be corny. I'm fine with it.
Y'all, this is a Q&A episode. This is where you guys submit your questions. We answer them. Sometimes you guys even submit feedback to us, and we'll go ahead and kind of read that on screen and let y'all know what we think about your feedback. But listen, before we get too far into the episode, let me just tell you real quick how to submit questions to us. You have three ways. First is by sending us a text message. Very simple. You text us at 833-230-2860. Once again, that's 833-230-2860. Make sure you use the face that Renee is texting us, all right, because we can see that. All right, make sure you use that face. All right, you did study face. All right. Then the second way is you can slide into our DMs. Hit us up at Instagram or on Instagram or even on Twitter at Docs Outside the Box.
Ain't nobody checking Twitter.
Nobody checking Twitter?
I ain't checking the Twitter account. You checking the Twitter account?
Check us out on Instagram. Are we Docs Outside the Box or Docs Outside the Box podcast? I can't remember.
We are Docs Outside the Box on IG.
Okay. Check us out on Docs Outside the Box. And then the last, and definitely not the least, way that you can get in contact with us is by going straight to our website, which is Dr. Need Darko. Go to the contact page, and there's a simple area where you can leave us some messages and let us know what you think.
drneeddarko.com.
Those are the three ways. All right. So we got two questions for today's show. One of them is something that we probably covered in a previous episode a long time ago, back late 2022. And
repetition is key.
And then another one kind of goes a little bit on the backs of what we just recently talked about, which is kind of physician bullying, physician targeting. But before we get into that, let's jump into really quickly the fact that you just got back from doing your weekend of, what's the way you want to describe it?
My weekend
your
of call. Weekend? My weekend of call.
Your 1099 weekend?
My 63 and a half hour this weekend because they asked me to come in an hour earlier. But yeah, I did a 63 and a half hour shift. And it actually wasn't as bad this week. It wasn't as bad this week.
Explain why it wasn't so bad this week.
So usually I go to the hospital on that Friday night. I'm like literally there usually until maybe Saturday morning. Like that's usually how it works. So
in-house in the hospital.
In-house in the hospital. Now this is a callback call. So I don't have to be in-house unless there are certain things going on very
Right, so
specifically.
you could be in your hotel room, and if someone comes in, you may or may not have to see them and go in house.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay.
So usually on Friday night when I come in, there's always something going on labor and delivery where I have to stay. So this past Friday, I came on. There was a patient who had just gotten there who wanted a repeat C-section. She had broken her water. And then there was another patient who was laboring, actually. And I was like, all right, cool. You know, the patient who was laboring was maybe about 6 centimeters or so. So I went back, you know, did the C-section after I checked the patient who was laboring. By the time I got out of the C-section, the patient who was laboring was ready to deliver. And that was it. So I ended up leaving the hospital after those 2 deliveries and went back to my hotel room and was able to sleep the entire night.
But I almost got you shot first.
What? Oh.
You want to talk about how I almost got you shot? Yeah. So I almost got Renee shot, y'all. And
killed. Shot and killed.
So normally we use Airbnbs when we do locums, mainly because when you're at an Airbnb, you kind of have an entire apartment to yourself. I'm tired of hotel rooms. I just get sick and tired of hotel rooms.
Child.
It'll be nice to have a kitchen. It's nice to have almost like a full suite of things that you can do to kind of have more of a healthier stay, right? If you're going to be away and gone, particularly for me who's away for like a week at a time, I like to be comfortable, right? Yeah. And oftentimes you'll see that these Airbnbs are just the same price as a hotel. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're even cheaper. So we found this Airbnb that's like definitely less than 15 minutes away from the hospital that has a kitchen, it's a kitchenette, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kitchen. It's a full kitchen.
It has a kitchen, it has a bedroom, and it has a bathroom. It's a lot of space.
Small living room area, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I like it also because if we were coming to visit you or vice versa, I could bring the kids, you could bring the kids, and they kind of have their space to play and so forth. The only thing about this spot is it's nice, but what we decided to do is to make an arrangement with the host outside of Airbnb so we can get better pricing. Mm-hmm. And Airbnb always warns you about that.
Right.
And they were right. You know. But, anyway, so I'll let you tell the story.
Well, so I get off at...
hold on real quick. So now that we don't use Airbnb to book this, we contact the host directly and say, hey, for such and such dates, we need the spot and what's going to be your rate. And then I will look at the rate in comparison to what I see on Airbnb or even a hotel. She gives me a good rate. Okay, we say bet. I pay her through, whatever means I'm going to pay through.
Venmo or whatever.
Venmo, Zelle, what have you. I get a receipt. And then we stay there. That's it. And then when it's time for me to finish and I do my invoicing and give it to the hospital, I literally give them the receipt she gives me, and then I get reimbursed that way. So everything basically. So basically, we removed the middleman of Airbnb for cheaper costs.
So usually, what happens with this particular property, because you're going directly to the host, usually what happens is she will text us. And sometimes she texts us a little too much and she becomes a little bit too invasive. But she will usually text us on the day of, like, hey, what time are you getting there? I just want to know, because of whatever random reason that she gives. And
which we appreciate, though.
Which we appreciate. But she will usually text us. So I leave the hospital that night, and it's like midnight at this point. So usually I will leave the hospital, usually I'll leave home and go straight to the hospital. So I didn't get a chance to actually check in, right? So I realized at midnight, when I'm literally at this lady's property, like I'm in my car at this lady's property in her driveway, I realized she didn't text me. And she usually does. So I call Nee and I'm like, hey, did you get a text from this woman? Because I didn't get a text. And I don't want to go in. I don't want to go up to the door and hit the keypad and walk in on somebody at their Airbnb if it's not supposed to be me.
Especially if she didn't change the keypad.
Especially if she didn't change the keypad.
Which she said.
Which she usually says she does, but, you know, you never know. You can never be too, too careful.
How do you know?
Right. How do you actually know? So, and even if not, right, the point is that the keypad, you're going to hear somebody trying to get in. And let me tell you guys, we are out in the country.
Yeah, the lighting of this place is not the greatest at times. And stuff.
Not the greatest. It is pitch black. Yeah. Okay, we are out in the country where there are like farms and fields and things like that. And I was like, listen, I know exactly where I am. I lived in rural communities. I know exactly where I am, and I know everybody carries out there. So I am not going to be the one to be pushing on somebody's keypad for them to not ask, who is it? How can I help you? Did you know you have the wrong place at the wrong time? No. So I decided to call this woman. She didn't answer because it was so late. I think she was sleeping. I text her. She didn't answer. It was so late. And I was like, let me tell you something, Nee. I am not going to be shot through somebody's door. So I left and went to a hotel instead.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, so then we get a text message like at 3 a.m. saying, hey, I don't know if you remember, but Nee had canceled because one of the days I wasn't able to guarantee because someone else was staying there. Long story short, I had canceled. She had refunded me the money, but I never took it off of our calendar as a place that we were staying. So I totally forgot. And if it's on our calendar, it's happening.
Right.
Shit like that. If it's not on our calendar, it's not happening. So
right.
Just so y'all know, if you ever want to book a meeting with me or whatever it is, if it's on our calendar, it's going to happen. If it does not on our calendar, it ain't going to happen. So her staying at this place was on the calendar. So I was like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
I did it.
And mind you, Nee is the one that does the...
I took care of it.
He takes care of all of that.
And then I was like, oh...
I forgot. Sugar honey iced tea.
I forgot. What do you call it? We did get a refund for this spot, and I was shook the rest of the night. I was like, oh snap! Like something could have happened bad.
Oh yeah.
So long story short, she ended up staying at a hotel.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be good, but I still had you out there at like midnight, even
past
midnight.
Out.
Possibly knocking on the door of someone who's going to be like, yo, what you doing here?
Basically.
State your name, Herb. You know.
State your name.
Yeah, if you got that far.
If I got that far. But anyway, I'm glad I had the intuition not to do it because obviously someone was staying at that Airbnb on that day. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't have, I didn't ignore my intuition and just go in. So
yeah. Yeah.
You really wanted that insurance money, didn't you?
Speaking of that, there's stuff on TV right now of somebody who anyway, before we get down the path, let's shift directions real quick. Let's talk about some trends that are going on social media. Specifically, let's talk about IG. Dr. Mike, one of the famous Instagram doctors out there. I think he's from around this area, actually. He's from Jersey. Yeah, he's from Morristown.
I didn't know that.
I think he did his residency. Anyway, he's around this area.
I didn't know that.
Dr. Mike did a recent post on Instagram and probably some other places where he's talking about how many years it took him to go through from college all the way to finishing residency, and then what's the resultant student loan debt. And then it's actually like a bunch of other influencers who are physicians, and we're talking about from radiologists to anesthesiologists to OB-GYN doctors who are also doing the same thing. So I'm going to play a little portion of it, and then we're going to talk about thoughts on this. Are we ready?
I went to school for 10 years, and it cost roughly $500,000.
4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, and I'm now making it rain with $200,000 of debt.
532,342 hours.
Which equates to approximately 12 years. I'm in debt. I'm still in debt.
I only had about $160,000 in debt, which is notably less than the average, but still a lot of money.
16 years.
In school and training to be a urologist.
I ended up with around $300,000 in debt.
So in the UK, you have to go to medical school for around 5 to 6 years, and then there's about 10 years of postgraduate training to become a surgeon. And I don't even want to think about the amount of money I've had to spend to get here or the debt I am yet to pay.
It's been about 20 years until I've reached the most senior level here.
$309,820 in student loan debt, a number that still haunts me to this day.
After 14 years and $250,000 later, here I am, an interventional radiologist.
God. Damn, that's a lot of debt.
That's a lot of debt. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of debt.
I was thinking like we should like do like a stitch of this, you know, and put this on IG and kind of just show like our reaction, or at least my reaction to it, and just say from my schooling, because my schooling is what, 4 of college, 4 of med school, that's what, 8, then 5 of residency, that's 13, and then 1 of fellowship. 1 of fellowship. So that's a total of 14 years and graduate, and also an additional year, or not even additional, but also MBA training.
Right. That's, in addition to, but so, not adding to your time.
Right. So that was $242,000 of student loan debt. And then we throw in there, we didn't deferment, forbearance for 5 to 6 years. And that's an additional $90,000 of debts for a grand total of $332,000 of student loan debt.
Yeah, mine was almost identical.
And then all of a sudden you come in and with your ring. But she just, this ain't no average marriage. This is a woman who also went to the same med school as I did, got the same MBA program I went to, and also deferred and forbeared, and you got the grand total of
$330,000.
For a total of, do the math, $662,000 of student loan debt. Damn. So I was looking at this post, and a lot of people are doctors, a lot of people who are, people who are not in the medical world. They're just like, damn, how you do this? How you plan on doing this? Thank you for sharing this and all that stuff. I think people are still shocked at the amount of debt that physicians carry. Yeah. But I think if you're not in the medical realm, I think a lot of people don't give a damn.
Yeah, of course not. Because they think, well, you're a doctor, you're going to make a lot of money, so what you complaining about?
Oh, yeah. Which is kind of true, which is not kind of true also. Right? Because if you're not prepared for it, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a major problem. But I also think that if the public knew how the debt and the thought process of what you're going to be making in that respective specialty with that debt, if they knew, I'm talking about the public knew the decisions that we're making, i.e. where we're going to work or what kind of specialty we're going to go to, and how it kind of leads to more disparities, particularly in primary care, I think they would be more like, oh, we got to do something about this.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
You don't think it'll affect them?
Nah. I don't think people care that much. People got other problems. These first world problems. Yeah. Like, I don't think people would care.
You might be right.
Right? Because honestly, if people were going to care, it would have happened already. Because the people who have the decision-making power to affect some of these things, they don't care. So why would the public care? Right?
Damn, just making my heart break just like that.
Yeah.
I thought you was going to support me on that. I think the public would care.
No, I don't think the public would care.
Because if you go to like rural neighborhoods, like their issue is that, well, they lack doctors all around. But if you think about it, like PCPs, I'm talking about internal medicine doctors, I'm talking about family doctors. These are literally the gatekeepers of the healthcare system. Yeah. And they carry the biggest burden. They take care of the sickest patients. They have the largest amount of patients. And then they farm out certain things that they can't do. They send that out to different specialties, surgery, OB, endocrinology. I don't have to explain this stuff. Right. But the people who do the most work and take care of the most patients and have the least area for making a mistake,
right?
There's less of those people. They get paid the less. They're straddled with a ton of student loan debt. It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that it is what it is. But I honestly don't think the public is going to be like, oh, decrease the student loan debt for doctors. I don't think that that's a fight.
Or at least we'd be last online.
Well, I don't think that's a fight that they're going to take on, because they're going to be like, wow, you guys make so much money. So, and whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. The perception is the reality. So
I'm interested what y'all think. Text us at 833-230-2860. Do you think the public should care that doctors who also are going to be bringing in guaranteed a 6-figure salary, that the public should care that a lot of doctors are graduating with a ton of student loan debt that would take several years for them to pay off? Because the other thing, too, is that people make money, right? Let's say, for example, like the radiologist is, I forget what he said, like $250,000, right? Like, it's not like you can take all of your salary for that entire year and pay off your debt. Like,
I get
you
it.
still got to eat, you still got to live, like, in a place, right? I'm not talking about just live. I'm talking about, like, you got to have a place to live. You got to pay for that. You know, like, you got to have a girlfriend that you're not going to tell after a year that you're going to another state. There's a lot of different things. Again. There's a lot of different things.
Don't start that again.
Well, anyway, listen. Let's. But I do think that we should create like a stitch about this, like a reaction piece on it, so we can talk more about this.
I think we just did it.
Yeah, Alfred, hook that up. Can you make like a little video for us to put out there on Instagram? But listen, let's get into our first question. But before we do that, we got to take a break. We got to pay the bills. We'll be right back. What's changed in healthcare? The opportunities, the lifestyle, and you. Now's the perfect time to explore locum tenens and see how it might fit into your career story. Trust me, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone, and the variety of opportunities might surprise you. I recommend starting your research at locumstory.com, an unbiased, educational resource about locum tenens. You're going to find stories of locum physicians from all walks of life, so you get a bigger picture of the diverse options. The Locum Story website also has a tool that lets you explore locums pay and demand for your specialty, and even compare to different locum tenens agencies. There's even a simple quiz to see if locums is a right fit for you. Locums could be an essential part of your career that adapts to your needs. Do your own research at locumstory.com. It's easy. Link is in the show notes. Hey guys, we are back. All right, so our first question comes from Instagram. And this says, should I get an MBA or an MHA or a JD, some type of dual degree while in medical school? I'm going to preface this by saying that we talked about getting an MBA, the pros and cons of it on episode 318. This will be in the show notes, but basically this episode was produced I think we released it November of 2022. And in that episode, we talked about what an MBA is, how much it costs, and what you should be thinking about using your MBA for, and does it make sense for you to get it while in residency or right before residency or after residency? With that being said, let me just do some standards real quick. Yeah. Some people who may not have listened to that episode, they may want to know, well, what is an MBA? An MBA basically is a graduate degree, and I took notes, that provides theoretical and practical training for business or investment management. An MBA is designed to help graduates gain a better understanding of general business management functions.
So basically, an MBA is a Master's of Business Administration.
Yes. Basically.
You said everything but that.
Well, okay, yeah. Okay. That's what it is. It's a Master of Business Administration. Okay. A MHA is Mastering Leadership and Management Tools to effectively run the business side of healthcare delivery and financing organizations and to manage teams of healthcare professionals. Okay. That's what the actual literature says, or that's what the definition says. Okay. The types of jobs that you can expect for MHA are Director of Hospital Operations, a Clinic Manager, Director of Patient Safety, Director of Business Development, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Nursing Officer. And then you have a Master's of Public Health, where the focus is preparing for a career in population health and community awareness. Emphasis is on the practical aspects of public health, right, as well as in-depth information about disease and research methods. The type of jobs you can get are community outreach coordinator. What is going on with me? I can't read.
It's late.
Outreach coordinator, health educator, health engagement marketing manager, epidemiologist, environmental health scientist. The list goes on. So let's go back to MBA because that's what we know most about, right?
Right.
So we did a 4-year dual degree program where we got our DO degree as well as our MBA degree. We did our programs mainly during the summertime for our first 2 years, right? So our first year, that summer in between our first and second year, we did our MBA studies. Second to third year, same thing. And then we took some online courses during our clinicals. Normally, if you're getting an MBA without going through a medical school, you have to take the GMAT. But if you're in a dual degree program, You don't have to. They'll accept your MCAT scores.
Right.
I can't recall if you have to do an essay or anything like that. I can't I can't remember, but I don't think you need to.
Yeah, well, I think it's also probably dependent on the school that you go to. So that might have something to do with it. Some MBA programs will have you do an extra year. Ours didn't. You know, our MBA program was in conjunction with our medical school, but the caveat was that we had to complete both medical school and business school in that 4-year time frame.
Yes. Yeah, whereas some other programs will just say, hey, in between like your second and third year, you're going to take a year off, and you're just going to do 1 year of MBA. Mm-hmm. So whatever you are looking at with these programs, the most important thing is, you know, one, do you want to do this? What do you really want to do with your career? As well as how much is it going to cost, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you look at the average MBA program that's affiliated with a dual degree program, we're talking anywhere between $50,000 to like $118,000, $120,000.
That's just the MBA program alone?
Yes. What? Yes. So you say you're adding that amount possibly in addition on top of your medical school training.
Whoa.
So that's a lot.
Whoa.
You know. So ours, I think, was like $28,000, I think, or $30,000.
Yeah, it was like 20. Yeah, it was like 20 some odd thousand.
That's a long time ago, though.
That was a long time ago, but it also, I believe, was discounted. Mm-hmm. I believe it was discounted because we were affiliated with the medical school. Yeah. So they discounted that.
Now, the question of should you get it before or after, the key question, the reason I ask, what do you want to do is I'm going to be very honest. If you are going into residency, there's not going to be much time for you to really exercise those MBA skills during your residency, unless you plan on doing some type of online business or some type of business while you're in residency or some type of consulting work while you're in residency. And as I would say, good luck trying to be able to, carve out time to really like exercise those skills. Because the key thing is obviously, getting the knowledge. But I think the true flex, the true win is, can you exercise those skills, in whatever business that you're going to do or whatever exercise that you're going to do? Are you going to be able to use it? So for me, I finished my MBA, then I went into residency, and I did not use it at all for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Actually, I didn't use it all for 6 years. So residency and training. And then when I came out, maybe after a couple of years, and then we started doing like locums. Mm-hmm. Then I think we started using some of those MBA skills when we started to figure out how we're going to pay off our debt, maybe a little bit more. And now that we're running our separate businesses, we're using these MBA skills. But we're talking about roughly about 6 years later, 7 years later that we started using it. The question is it worth it to get it before then or just get it afterwards? I don't know. And I think that's where the person who's in medical school or who's going into medical school and deciding, do they want to add on this debt? Some of these things they need to think about. Yeah. Right? Like, are they really into business? Is there something that's really attracting them that they think that, maybe I could even take some time off, like take a sabbatical after medical school so that you can use these skills and then go into residency? Because residency is going to take a lot of time. That's my thoughts. So.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, because the question is how are you going to use that skill in just a year's time? If you do kind of like a gap year, if you will, between medical school and residency, how much are you going to use those skills in that short of a time that it will actually be useful, to you? I don't know. But I think it all depends on, like you said, what do you plan on doing with your career? Now, I will say this, there are different types of training programs that you can go to. For example, there are residencies that are administrative in nature, right? So if you decide, maybe that gap year that you're talking about looks like an administrative residency before you go into your clinical residency or after you go into your clinical residency, right?
Like, what residencies do that?
Administrative?
Yeah.
There are there are some institutions that have like an administrative residency.
Yeah, I'll put those links. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some institutions that have an actual administrative residency, and it's usually about 1 year, I think no more than 2 years of an administrative residency, but those do exist. So, if you're looking to go into administration, that might be something that you consider because, you might then use your MBA skills and be very, just be in a way that you can use it very practically, right? Use it in a way that's very practical for you. Getting an MBA is not a necessity to be in an administrative position, right? So outside of talking about administrative residencies, right? So if you wanted to be chief medical officer or if you wanted to be CEO of a hospital, right? Like it's not absolutely necessary.
I'll be very honest. There's plenty of chief executive officers, chief medical officers, or any other position in the C-suite where there's doctors there who don't have an MBA or an MHA or a JD or an MPH. Just so you guys know, just laying it down, there's plenty of that going around.
Right. So you don't necessarily need that level of a graduate degree in order to do those positions. So if that's what you're thinking, like, oh, well, I want to get an MBA because I want to be CMO, I want to be, I want to be CEO. It might help you, but at the same time, it's not necessary. What's going to be, I think, what I think is going to be probably more impressive, I don't know if that's the word, is kind of your experience. The experience is really what's going to make the difference, right? What have you done? Have you sat on boards? If you sat on boards, what has actually been your role on those boards, right? What are the things that you're doing outside of your clinical practice that, that have, that showcase skills that you could use in the C-suite? Because that's actually going to make a difference. Now, if you have an MBA, but you haven't demonstrated any skill, then it's like, all right, so you went to school, you got good grades, that's nice.
But one thing that we also need to, I would just want to say is, I want to talk about the people who are interested in getting those dual degrees, who are just interested because they just want to be into that, because they are interested in that, right? Like that.
They want the letters.
They just want they want the letters, they want the knowledge, whichever way you want to think about it. Like they are hardcore about that topic and they want to get it, right? Like those are people who, whatever we say, they're going to get it. And that's fine. Like if you really want the knowledge from an MBA or you just really want the legal aspects from a JD or whatever from any of those degrees in between, then go ahead and get that. Like that is something that you really seek and is going to make you better. The caveat is that when we did, even though I did not use my MBA afterwards during that 6 to 7 year period, to be really honest with you, getting the MBA changed my perspective on medicine big time.
Yes.
So just getting the knowledge was a game changer for me. It helped me to really understand the business of medicine. It helped me to understand the motivations of hospitals, the motivations of healthcare organizations, pharmaceutical companies,
the government,
and even the government, and how it relates to us as physicians. That was a complete game changer. And I'll be very honest with you, even during residency, although I wasn't using my MBA, it didn't mean that I wasn't thinking in an MBA way. Like, how can we cut costs here? How can we be a little bit more efficient here? How can I get paid a little bit more? Those are things that I was thinking about when I was a resident. And I think when I jumped into as soon as I finished training and now I was on my own working, and I started working doing as a locum tenens doc, right? Which means I was kind of taking care of everything on my own, from, my own healthcare to my own medical malpractice at times, to all of these different things. That's when I was like, I can be more efficient with this. I can be, I can pay myself more if I follow these tax principles. All of these different things per se weren't me like utilizing an MBA, but I was thinking in a more efficient manner. And I think that was very helpful. But I do believe that in order to run a successful business, in order to understand the legal side of medicine, in order to understand how let me look at my notes real quick, in order to prepare for a career in population health, I do not think it is absolutely mandatory that you get those degrees in order to have an impactful degree in that. So whoever wrote that, I hope they understand that. Yeah. Because that's a ton of additional debt.
That is a lot of additional debt.
That we're talking about realistically may take about 10 to 15 years for you to get a return on investment on.
Yeah.
If you do it prior to medical school.
Yeah.
Or prior to graduating from medical school.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So we didn't give an answer to that person, but I think hopefully they kind of understand the gravity of the decision that they're going to make. And I think the key things are understanding, 1, is this something that you really, really like? 2, is this something that you're prepared to pay for? 3, do you have a plan to use it after medical school, right? If not, then you may want to consider getting it after residency. And if that passion or if that want is still there, then go and do it. The other thing is, if you do it after residency, whatever job you take or whatever private practice that you're in, more than likely they have some form of tuition reimbursement if you're going to get this additional degree. So that's one thing to consider. A lot of hospitals give RNs the ability to get additional degrees.
Right.
And they definitely give doctors an opportunity to get additional degrees, such as an MBA or an online MBA or an executive MBA, or even, like we described before, a MPH. I don't know about getting a JD because I don't know if the hospitals really want doctors suing them and all that. Doctors suing themselves, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of legal implications in medicine. So, I mean, you never know. You never know.
But listen, I think we settled that. Shout out to the person who wrote that question. Once again, you can text us at 1-833-230-2860 so we can get more questions like that. We're going to get into our next question, which is more on being targeted in residency. Let's take another break. Let's pay those bills. If you're looking for a podcast that moves the health conversation outside of the box, then I highly recommend Healthy Conversations, the acclaimed podcast from CVS Health. Hosted by Dr. Daniel Kraft, the Harvard and Stanford-trained physician scientist, Healthy Conversations provides cutting-edge information about the forefront of medical practice. On each episode, Dr. Kraft sits down for one-on-one interviews with doctors and tech innovators who are transforming healthcare to address some of the most pressing issues. If you're looking for entrepreneurial inspiration, then I recommend their episode on how the NHS evolved to support physician entrepreneurs. This is where Dr. Kraft interviews Dr. Tony Young of England's National Health Service on medical innovation. Or listen to their recent conversation on neurodiversity with legendary animal behaviorist and autism advocate Temple Grandin. So look, don't miss out. Listen to Healthy Conversations from CVS Health. It's available for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Link is in the show notes. All right, we back from the break. So listen, this is our second question that was submitted to us on Instagram. This question reads, I feel like I'm being targeted in residency. What should I do? Especially coming off of what we just talked about in our previous episode. Right. This is important, right? Before we get into answering this, there is a study, or there's multiple studies, one recently that came out in JAMA that showed that up to anywhere between like 19 or 15 to like 28% or 30% of residents describe being bullied in residency. I think that number's low. Actually.
I think that number's low too.
Right. And obviously, like we talked in a previous episode, being bullied, being targeted. Basically, I think what this person is saying, you feel like there are people who are kind of angling certain things.
Yeah, out to get you.
Either out to get you or to get you fired, or they're bullying you in some form or fashion. And it is crazy. That's something that you definitely have.
I definitely experienced that.
I could tell, she's triggered by that. As you can see how she's like, word up. Yeah, I'm gonna get y'all. Y'all can tell, right?
Word up.
So that is an issue, right? So let's jump into this.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm being targeted in residency. What should I do? I think it's a tough one. You want to jump on this?
Well, I'll just tell you what I did. So
you left your program.
No. No. So part of it was that. But there was a very specific, and I think I talked about this on the show before, there was a very specific person who targeted me, and that was an attending.
Yes.
That was an attending. This attending would berate me literally for no reason. I'd be standing there and he just just decide he wants to berate me. And finally, I got fed up. And one day he berated me again in front of everybody. And it was over something that I didn't even do. He was yelling at me for something I literally did not even do. The resident who actually did the thing that he was upset about was sitting right there. But he decided to berate me instead.
And that resident wasn't going to say nothing.
Of course not.
He's like, I'm going to sit here in the cut and let Renee take it.
Exactly.
Keep going.
Of course not. So that day I had 24-hour call, and he was the attending on for the MFM service. And I called the chief of the GYN service, who was one of my mentors. And I said to her, "You gonna fire me today?" That's exactly how I answered the phone. She said, "Hello?" I said, "You gonna fire me today?" And she said, "Uh-oh, what's wrong?" And I told her what happened in the sign out. And I said, he got one more time to say something to me. And I promise I will throw this whole thing away. I promise I will lay hands on this man. I promise you. Because for me, you're not going to berate me. You're not going to, disrespect me and think you're just going to get away with it after a while. After a while, I'm going to have to say something to you. So I said to her, it's either you tell him, don't call me, don't talk to me, don't even look at me, don't even think about me for the next 24 hours that I'm on, or else he and I are definitely going to get into it. I promise you, I'm not holding my tongue anymore.
Okay.
I don't know what she said to him. That 24-hour period went by, and I never heard from him again.
So I kept some notes, actually, on what to do in these type of situations. And it's funny that you mentioned that story right there covers so many different things, which is the first thing is you went to was it the chair or the department head?
She was like a division chief.
Okay, so I have one of my notes. I have, if you have a trusted friend or mentor, let them know and talk honestly about that, which is what you did. So for the person who's listening out there, it's really good to make sure you have an ally or someone that you really trust. If you trust that person, and this person particularly is maybe in a leadership role or as a mentor, let them know. Be very honest about it. Then the other thing that you said that's very interesting is act professional at all times, right? So technically you did, but you possibly may not have. But the most important thing is that you, the person who's listening, the person who wrote this in, you got to act professionally at all times, because a lot of times some of these folks may be trying to tempt you and maybe trying to get you to act professional so they can be like, aha, I got it. Unprofessional. And then they kick you out. Or ultimately, it's kind of one of the, when you have two people fighting and the person, and if let's say you're a parent, you have two kids fighting, the person who's going to get in trouble is the person who you see punch last or hit last or say something last. So if the last act is you as a resident acting unprofessionally, it's not going to bode well for you. So I always say just stay on the up and up no matter what you do. Act professional at all times. And I do think you can professionally diss someone, for the record.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do all the time. But that day, I was like, ooh.
Did you document anything at all?
No, I did not document.
Did you ever think about documenting?
Yes, I did think about documenting, because I thought after that period of time, I was like, if I don't start documenting and this continues and I blow up for whatever reason, then it's gonna blow back on me. So I thought about documenting, but that individual ended up leaving the program shortly after that period of time.
This is your first year?
No, this was actually in my second year.
Oh, I didn't know this was.
This went on for 2 years.
What's his name? Where he at?
Chavez. I'll say his name. His name is Chavez.
Oh, that's cold.
In New York. She calling him out.
Yep.
Oh, on Docs Outside the Box. We calling people
Absolutely.
out.
I mean, listen, if you don't have a problem doing this in public, it's not private, right? This is not private interactions. These were public interactions.
Look at her face, guys.
Right?
Look at it.
These were public interactions.
She pissed?
Yo, listen, these were public interactions. If he didn't have a problem doing it in front of other residents, then I ain't got a problem saying who he was, and where he worked and what he's. I don't have a problem with that. I'm sorry, no. And if you didn't want to be known for that, then you shouldn't have done it. Moving on.
Are you finished?
Yep.
Should we put like trigger warning?
Nope. I'm not triggered. I'm just telling the truth. Why you look scared?
So, document incidents as soon as they happen. Right?
Yes, you should.
Document.
I agree. That's one thing I should have done. That's one thing I should have done.
Okay. My name is Darko. I'm not Chavez.
Shut up.
All right. So document incidents as soon as they happen, y'all. Right. And just so you guys know, like, this is a major issue. This is one of the priorities of the ACGME. So every residency program should have a way for you to either get in contact with or make a complaint, either through your program director or some type of compliance way where I forget what it is. But there's a way that you should be able to anonymously make these type of complaints or alert someone and let someone know what's going on. That, hey, like, I feel like I'm being targeted, and his example 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so that you can document it. The next thing is, do not react with emotion. Right? I know it's so easy to do.
You mean it's so hard to do?
I know it's so easy.
To react with emotion.
Can you?
Sorry.
Excuse me, before you get me triggered, can you chill out? All right?
I thought you were saying it's easy to not react with emotion.
All right, man, just chill. All right, let me talk my. You know what? All right. So do not react with emotions, y'all. All right. This goes down with act professionally at all times. The most important thing is to keep a level head so that you can think about all of the different actions that you can take. You think about all of the options that are available to you. You know, if you are hot-headed, you may not think about all the options, and you may kind of just blow up on someone, like you said. You may not survive the night, right? And then, I think about people who. So you got lucky. Your person left after their second year.
Yes.
But the person who has to deal with this for 4 years or
5
for 5 years.
10 or 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And this could be although this question is being targeted in residency, there are people who could be targeted as attendings.
Oh, absolutely.
Or if you're in a private practice and you feel like, the partners are probably bullying you in some form or fashion. Or maybe even people who are among the staff are bullying you. Right?
Absolutely.
So that could be an issue.
I've definitely witnessed that. I have not had that particular experience, but I've definitely seen people get bullied in the workplace, for sure.
So the effects of bullying on residents, people are saying low job satisfaction, depression, anxiety or anger, substance misuse, low self-confidence, burnout, quitting residency, which you almost did. And the thing that I have really starred here, and I think ultimately this oftentimes becomes the root of the issue, is a continual cycle of bullying for next generation of students and doctors. Yeah. So basically hurt people, y'all. Right? People got hurt back in the day, and they're just like, well, because I got hurt and nobody stepped in, then I'm going to, inflict that hurt onto somebody else, which obviously we know in medicine makes no sense. But the question is who's got the guts to step up and say, you know what, I'm gonna be the MLK of this, and I'm gonna stop this right in the middle and stuff, right? I'm gonna treat all residents of all kinds. Right? And
okay, that's enough.
Am I going too far? Y'all know where I'm going with this, right? But who's gonna be that one person who's gonna be like, look, I am stopping this. Enough. Right? And oftentimes, a lot of people, and, the one thing about it that's so interesting about medicine is there's so much like machismo sometimes that occurs in medicine, or there's so much like, what's the word I want to use? Bloviating that occurs in medicine. But if you really think about it, people in medicine are cowards. Right? People don't know how to step up to authority. They don't want to be the only person out there on Front Street. So if somebody's going through something and they know damn well that their colleague is doing something wrong, a lot of times a lot of times they may not say something. But if you make a complaint to your program director is, what do you call it? Is their hand is forced. They have to take action on this. Sometimes you may even have to just go to your human resources department, right? Depending on what type of working type of situation that you're in, right? Like particularly like if you're employed by like the city, like some residencies, or
the state.
Yeah, there's some residencies where you're not employed by the school. You're employed by the state or you're employed by the city. And as a result, like you're reporting to like the city bureaucracy and so forth. But, you know, when you report something, you go through that. So that's just something to consider also.
Yeah. I think, you know, like you said, in training, you know, we are taught many things. We are taught how to take care of patients, but we are also taught how to teach the next level of cohorts underneath us, right? And so the question becomes, well, what do you do? How do you teach these people? How do you treat these people, right? And hurt people, right? And then you also have to think about the question of, okay, well, you need to teach people in such a way so that they understand the importance of the work that they're doing, that they understand the accountability that they need to have, right? Like that's really important because we all know, we all have seen the resident who doesn't want to take accountability. And so you've been trying to teach this resident like, hey, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. And they're just like blowing you off. And then that's at the point where you're like, all right, like I can't be nice anymore. Like I literally just have to tell you that what you're doing is not good. Like you're literally not doing a good job. Here's the question. Does that person now feel bullied?
Right.
Right? Because it's all in the perspective, right? So it's all in the perspective. So it's a question of how are you approaching people in ways for you to have them improve on something versus you've given this person quite a number of opportunities, you know, to correct their behaviors and they haven't done it.
Yeah.
Right. And they actually haven't done it. So I think it's a slippery slope.
I just want to be really clear with people too, because I think people know what targeting is and they know what bullying is, but there's some other subtle ways that you can bully people. For example, like if you're a non-native language speaker, you can be bullied by people making fun of you constantly, having an accent. Being an international medical graduate are ways in which people can, give you a hard time. Being humiliated in front of patients. On rounds when you're trying to present and, someone is clowning you, whether it's your chief resident or your upper level or even just an attending, right? Sometimes you could be told to do procedures and you don't have any supervision. Right? So they just go and put you in situations where they know you're going to
fail.
Right?
Right.
And then I think also what goes without saying, and we're starting to see this, right? There's also sexual and physical harassment.
Not also. Starting, it's always been.
Did I say starting?
Yes. You said we're starting to see this.
Sorry. Well, what I meant to say is it's coming out more and more.
Right.
Or people are reporting this more and more. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened in the past.
Right.
But there is a sustained amount of sexual and physical harassment also. So there's subtle ways and then there's very overt ways in which you can target someone. But for this person, what kind of advice would you give this person? Because I gave overall, like, forest for the trees type of advice. What would you give to this person?
I would give them pretty much the same advice, The one thing that I would definitely, kind of expand on is the thing, like you said, about be careful not to be baited into being unprofessional, right? You know me. I love that Godfather scene with Sonny, right? Don't be Sonny, right? You see how Sonny
Sonny was a hothead, yeah.
Sonny was a hothead, but his downfall was his predictability.
Yes.
It was his predictability. It was like, I know I can get you to do whatever. He was very easily manipulated, and the brother-in-law manipulated him, and that's why Sonny got killed. So don't be a Sonny. Don't be so predictable that someone can literally bait you into doing something that is eventually going to be your downfall. Because if you become very predictable, then you're very easily manipulated.
The other thing that I would say, too, for the one who's listening, who wrote this in, I would say ask questions, actually. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you're being targeted, or let's just feel like there is an interaction that you just kind of feel is off kilter, ask a question and be like, hey, my presentation, did you have an issue with that? Did I say something wrong? Is there, can I get some feedback on something like that? And I think what that does is it allows that person who possibly may be targeting you, who may be looking at you as a mark, to be like, oh, this person is really keen on asking questions and feedback, as well as aware of, my reaction to this person doesn't make sense, right? So
You're better than me.
No, but I think when you ask someone a question like, hey, do you have an issue? Right? Like, hey, I did this presentation. I noticed that you made some offhand comments. Because I've done that now. I do that a lot now. Mm-hmm. People will make these stupid snickering thing, and afterwards I'll be like, hey, I saw that you were making these comments and you were kind of snickering. Is there an issue? Did I say something that... And I feel like when I do that, that puts everything on your plate. Now you have to come back and react to me and say, well, why were you making these type of comments? Why were you doing these type of things? And
you're doing that as an attending. But when you
I did that. I did that as a resident too.
Were you targeted?
I don't know if I was targeted.
If you don't know that you were targeted, you probably were not targeted. And when you're targeted, you know you're targeted. You know, there's no.
So you're saying if you're targeted, you wouldn't ask questions?
No. What I'm saying is that it's a difficult thing to know that you are being targeted, and to get out of the realm of, why is this person targeting me? Because that's the question you actually want to ask is, dude, why are you targeting me? Right? Because for me, I'm like, so my situation was this.
She's triggered.
I'm not triggered. My situation was this. The patient was placed on heparin. I signed out to the night team. You gotta check her PTT. You gotta check her coags overnight because she just started on heparin. That's before we're doing all the Eliquis and all this stuff now, right? So I was like, you gotta check her PTT. I come back. It's 12 hours later, 13 hours later, and I'm like, where's the PTT? Wasn't checked, right? Nobody drew the lab, right? And so what happened was, as we were signing out, that it wasn't checked came up. And that's when the attending walked into the room to hear that it hadn't been checked. But he didn't know the situation. He didn't know that it was supposed to be checked by the night team, not by me, who was actually coming on. And so now he starts berating me. And I'm like, so the first thing is not, well, what do you think I should have done?
Well, at this point.
But that's what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Is that
I see what you're saying.
A target usually is targeted for the stupidest reason. It's not an actual reason. It's something that is completely stupid, right? It usually doesn't make any sense as to why this person is targeted. Otherwise, it would just be feedback. Right? But it's not feedback. It's a beratement. It's let me just find something, some nitpicky little thing for me to get on you about. And so for me, I'm like, that's easier said than done, because most oftentimes when you are being targeted, it is not because the person is actually trying to give you feedback. It's because they want to berate you and they want to humiliate you. And if you speak in that moment, what you're going to do is fuel them to berate you even more. That's what I think. That's what I think. But I'm not a bully, right? So for me, I wouldn't do that. Like if somebody really, I had a resident once that I had to really put in check, because I was training her to be on the night team, and I kept telling her, okay, whenever we sign out, whenever we talk about labs, regardless of the fact that you are not taking care of these specific patients and you are delegated to L&D, you still need to keep track of all of the patients on the service.
Okay.
Right? And so we went a week like this. And every day I would tell her the same thing. You have to check, you have to check, you have to check, you have to check. We went an entire week. And mind you, I was the second year, or I was the third year actually. My fourth year was there. So my fourth year was the more senior person. My fourth year was like, I can't deal with her. I just can't deal with her.
Okay.
So now I'm left to be the one to tell her, like, listen, you got to do this. So I did this for an entire week on night float, and she refused to take accountability and check the labs. So I was checking my labs for my patients, checking her labs for her patients. I was doing all the work of the service until finally I was like, all right, what are we going to do about this? My fourth year, you know what she did? She went to bed, okay, and was like, you deal with it. So finally I had to say to this resident, I was like, listen, if you're not going to do this and I'm going to take care of the entire service anyway, then I'm going to have to send you to bed and then just wake you up at 6 a.m. Because if I'm doing all of the work anyway, we can't work like this. Now, she, started tearing up, and I'm like, no. I'm like, this is not about tearing up. I'm not getting on you because I just want to get on you. I'm getting on you because you need to understand the implications of what you are not doing.
Okay, so you found an issue and you gave feedback.
So, and I gave feedback.
Right.
I was not targeting her. And then finally, she was fixed after that. She knew exactly what to do. But that was constructive feedback, even though it was kind of like, yo, like, wake up. I wasn't trying to berate her.
So I think the person who's listening should know, because sometimes it may be even hard to determine if they're being, because you can't tell if they're being targeted or not, right? They may not be able to tell if they're being targeted or not, right? They're like, I just don't understand, right? But if you're getting feedback that sounds more like being berated more so than getting feedback, if it doesn't sound constructive, then more than likely you might be targeted. Or sometimes, it could be just a little bit oversensitive. Who knows, right? But if there's this continual amount of just feeling like, hey, I'm being berated, or I feel like there's this big target on me, you might be on the right path.
Right.
I would say go back to, nobody likes my question answer then. I would go back to just making sure you document. I would also make sure that you go and speak to your program director about that. If you have a mentor that you can trust, i.e. what you did with your division chief, go to a trusted mentor, let them know what's going on, describe the situation for them and see if they can even give you an answer as to what they think is going on, and always act professional at all times.
Yeah.
So listen, this episode is actually going a little bit longer than what we wanted to go.
Lots longer.
So listen, guys, we appreciate all the questions that you submit. We are catching up on all of these questions that you guys are letting us know about. We're going to get to them. But if you want to submit more questions, make sure you text us at 833... Oh, I lost the number. 833-230-2860, or you can text us on Instagram at Docs Outside the Box, or third is go to the website drnedarko.com, go to the contact page, and you'll see a paper there or a document there that you can fill out and submit a question there with you all. Okay? So I appreciate y'all. Renee appreciate y'all. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace. We can get therapy for Renee.